Welcome to Oscar Sunday. I'm Austin Johnson,
I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
and today we are going to be talking about Undefeated from 2011, which won Best Documentary at the 84th Academy Awards. So that was about 10 years ago. Today is actual Super Bowl Sunday, so I wanted to kind of incorporate American football with Oscar Sunday. This movie, of course, was only nominated for Best Documentary and won. It's in a pretty good group of documentaries, but Undefeated is powerful. It's about so much more than football, and I was glad I could kind of use this show to rewatch it. I hadn't seen it in years. So, what are your general thoughts? Because this is your first time.
Yeah, anybody who's followed our shows for some time now knows what my likes and your likes are. They can kind of gauge what we're going to be into. And football documentaries, very much not in my wheelhouse. Never been a sports guy, never really understood the fervor of American football. Always kind of thought, it was kind of pointless. And I'm sorry if we lose viewership because of that. But there's one thing I can get behind. It's an honest film about real people dealing with real struggles and real dreams. And that's very much what Undefeated is about. Like, the title has nothing to do with their score. Like, they lost a couple games. They're not undefeated, but in their soul, nothing can stop them. That's what this means. And I love that. There's a power in this movie that drew me in. And, towards the end, I felt my heart skipping during the playoff game. I was like, fuck, are they going to do this? You feel that. You get sucked into it. You're like, this is this is real life. This is real stakes. And documentaries have that power. And, through you and this show, I've been very much thrown into the deep end on documentaries, and I'm all in now. I want to see everything. And I am very grateful for that. So thank you. And, as I said before we recorded, I'm no longer going to doubt your selections on anything you got going forward on this show, because you know what you're doing, clearly. So thanks for this. This was a good choice.
You're welcome. But it's the work. It's the work that does it, right? Documentaries it's the most watched genre on my Letterboxd. I've seen, I don't know, 300 something documentaries. I love them so much. In particular, sports documentaries, because I love sports. I'm really excited for the Super Bowl. We're recording this on Friday night, so it's 2 days before the Super Bowl. The Rams and the Bengals will be playing each other. I will be at work during the game, but I will definitely be taking I will be taking my breaks and my lunch during that during that game. That's at 5:30 p.m. here in Texas. So I'm very excited to watch that. I've been following this scene really closely, and I won my fantasy football league this year, which was cool. I haven't played fantasy in a long time, so that was fun. Sports are a way of looking at so many things. It's just a vehicle where you can kind of look at what it's like to just be a person, and what it means to be kind of a part of something, to work together with other people. And of course, with this one, they really, really follow the coach and what it means. And at that, a volunteer coach, a guy who's not getting paid to do what he's doing. Bill Courtney, what a legend. And watching someone lead like that without really a physical reward, there's no money involved. Watching him just do it to try to help these kids is beautiful, and I can think of many sports documentaries where the sport is the vehicle, but really you're learning so much more about what it's like to be a person in different groups and different parts of society. And I love that about them. I love documentaries, and it requires, for Undefeated, there's over 500 hours of footage, and they have to whittle that down into 2 hours, right? So it requires this really incredible knack for filmmaking, for figuring out what's going to work, what's going to create the best storyline, what's going to be the best narrative, what's going to kind of, get people, like you said, get their hearts just pounding towards the end of it. And with Undefeated, there's I can point out three there's 3 times when I watched it last night that I just started bawling. I just started crying. And that's what documentaries can do, because you're dealing with real life, And this is only the second documentary we've done. We did Minding the Gap, right? And that one's in a fucking place of its own in my mind. One of the best documentaries I've ever seen in my life. And really wish it would have won the Oscar, but I'm glad we got to do it on the show because it was nominated. Undefeated's a winner, This is our first winning documentary on the show. We're going to do more. It's such an awesome category that allows you to watch these vastly different things, within this group, we're going to talk about it later at the 84th Academy Awards. There's completely different stories, right? And they're all powerful. They all have their own thing to say. So I'm really excited to talk about that. That's the only category we'll really go over later on, and we'll give our own awards out to Undefeated. But I wanted to do something that was kind of cool for, like, shout out some documentaries. I wanted to do top 5 documentaries. Now, for me, I'm doing top 5 sports related documentaries. And for you, you're doing top 5 filmmaking related documentaries, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. With both of our, personal wheelhouses.
Yes. Yeah. Sports are very much like my initial passion as a child. I've been obsessed with basketball my whole life, really. As I got into my early teen years and into now, I'm obsessed with soccer, the real football. I love baseball, love hockey. I love it all. I love non-scripted, just fucking action where you literally have no idea what's going to happen. Like just tonight, there was this game I was watching, the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets, and it was this up and down, back and forth basketball game that the score kept changing and teams kept taking the lead, and it was really cool. And the Celtics, who were down most of the game, ended up winning by 6 tonight, and I was just like, that was fun as shit. It was so entertaining, and that's one of my favorite things in the world, is to just kind of sit back and escape reality with sports and watching these guys who are just masters of their craft. Much like filmmaking, when you watch a good film and it's good, it's great, deep down in your heart, you're like, I'm watching masters at work here. Whether it's the director, the writer, the actors, the cinematographer, that's really cool. We both kind of can highlight 5 different ones that revolve around that. So I'll let you start. This is gonna be vastly different top 5s, which is cool. I think we're gonna be able to shout out a lot of different things. So I'll let you start with your number 5.
Sure. So these are 5 film. I haven't seen a lot of documentaries total. I've seen 29. So still pretty fresh on this whole thing. But I do have 5 very good movies about movies. Number 5 is a Netflix original called The Last Blockbuster.
Nice.
This is, obviously about The Last Blockbuster. It tells the story of the fall of the mighty movie rental titan that was Blockbuster at the hands of the red envelope that was Netflix, and how there's one franchise left in the world, and it's in some small town in the Northwest, I think, maybe the Midwest, and they're holding on to this. They have been for years, and it's become a mecca of film fans, of people who are like, I remember Blockbuster. They go to this place. They get to take pictures at the Last Blockbuster. The people who run it go to Walmart every week and buy out the new releases and rent them to this town. And they're still thriving. They got their contract renewed. And it's just like the last piece of movie rental history still living out there. And it's fascinating to see the evolution of film in the home and how far we've come from just accepting a $60 late fee on fucking Beverly Hills Cop, and just now, getting anything you want at your fingertips, and not that long, and not that it's been pretty quick too. Like, almost only like 10 years that we've gone from here to there. It's pretty remarkable. So definitely a must see for any film buff who wants to see kind of where we've come from.
Yeah, God, I love that. I still remember just how special it was to go to Blockbuster, right? How, my mom would be like, you can pick out 2 things. I would pick out a movie and a video game. That was always my kind of, I just picked one of each, and that was what I did for the week.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when you knew you liked something a lot, I remember when Jack and Daxter came out, and I got that like fucking 9 weeks in a row, right? I was just like, well, now I just want to fucking beat the game, right? It's like I probably should have just bought it. And eventually we did. Eventually my older brother, he bought that game, and we played the shit out of it. But that would happen with movies too, right? You'd find a movie that you liked, and you'd revisit it that way. You'd go back like, oh, I have my chance to get whatever again. And there's something in the air in Blockbuster that I fucking loved and I miss, because it was, when you have the streaming services that rule everything now, you can just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and you're desensitized to how many titles you're going through. There, you had to pick something. That's what you had. That's what you had. It's what you chose.
Well, that's a big thing that comes up in the doc is the atmosphere of a Blockbuster.
Yeah.
The smell of the popcorn buckets and the bag of cotton candy and the blue carpet.
Yes.
It's such a specific vibe that is lost forever, except at this one place. And it's so crazy. I want to go there. I want to take a trip, go check out the Last Blockbuster. There's an appeal to this that I totally get.
Yeah, I would go with you for sure. I think that would be a really fun random trip. The Blockbuster that I went to growing up was on 281 in San Antonio, 281 in Evans, which is right next to where I work now. So every day, I'm not kidding. Every single day I drive past. Now it's an urgent care building that it was is an urgent care. I drive past there every day, and I go back to when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. And all these years, I had these weird existential moments every time I go to work where I'm like, wow, now I'm driving to work because this is what I got to do to, just fucking survive or whatever. But there was a time when going down that road, going down Evans and turning right into Blockbuster was like heaven to me. and that's one of those weird things, I would go with you, man. Let's go to the fucking Last Blockbuster. Fuck it.
When I first moved here, I remember that Blockbuster. It was still a Blockbuster when I first got here. And I remember that was right when it was starting to crumble. And I tried to go there because they were having an everything must go sale. And I wanted to buy a bunch of movies, but I forgot and I missed my window.
I definitely went to that. I have a lot of random movies that still have that kind of weird, the case is kind of grainy almost, where it's not one of the movies that I remember buying vividly, I have Body of Lies, Leonardo DiCaprio. That's a movie that I remember buying there, just on a whim, why not? I got Orange County, which is one of my favorite random 2000s comedies. I got that during that sale. But yeah, everything, it was just in buckets, and you just picked out fucking 5 of them for $10. That's what it was. Oh man, miss those days for sure. That and then Hollywood Video. Those two I went to a lot as a kid, and I miss them a lot. I miss that, like you said, that atmosphere is intoxicating. Great pick, man. Good pick.
Thanks.
My number 5. Again, these are all sports related. My number 5 is Lenny Cook, directed by the Safdie brothers, a basketball documentary about a phenom named Lenny Cook, who was the number 1 basketball recruit in his high school class when he was a senior. And it's the documentary is about how he was just this larger than life freak of nature basketball player who just had the wrong people. I still believe this to this day, because I remember hearing about him as a kid, because he was a senior in high school in 2002. So this is right before LeBron was the next guy. And before LeBron, it was supposed to be Lenny Cook. It was supposed to be this guy. It was supposed to be this guy's 6'7", can kind of do everything on the basketball court. He's this crazy big personality. And it's about how he didn't have the right people in his corner. He didn't have the right people kind of guiding him, and didn't have the best discipline himself. So there was no one there kind of saying, hey man, you need to kind of buck up and man up and learn how to operate in this world of sports and earning money and being on your own and these things. And I think ultimately that's why he fell so fast and ended up not doing anything. He played on the Boston Celtics summer league team, actually against LeBron James the year LeBron got drafted, but never really made an NBA roster. Never really got to fulfill uh, his dreams of becoming a pro athlete. And the documentary is very sad. It's filmed incredibly, as you'd expect from the Safdie brothers, who have gone on to make, Good Time and Uncut Gems. These guys are just these mastermind filmmakers at this point. But this documentary, is one of my favorite things they've done. And it's really cool to see their passion for basketball and their passion for specifically a guy who's from New York and plays in New York in high school, and dominated that Northeast area as far as high school basketball goes. And there's footage of him later on, and he's gained a bunch of weight and is just kind of working a normal job. And there's one scene that's real sad where it's his birthday, and he's hanging out with some of his buddies, just kind of like at a little barbecue type thing. And then they're playing music and smoking weed and dancing and stuff and just kind of fucking around. And then at the end of the night, he's on his couch, and he's gained a significant amount of weight since his high school days. And he's watching NBA highlights. He's watching these guys play, specifically LeBron James. And he's like, that should have been me type thing. And it's one of those fall from grace stories that just kind of pulverizes you, and if you really like basketball, he's a fascinating guy to learn about, because this has happened to plenty of players that they don't pan out because they don't have the right people in their corner rooting for them, cheering for them. Instead, they're just kind of sucking from them. They're like, once they make some money, they just fucking jump on and want to suck the life out of them. And that happened to Lenny Cook, and the Safdie brothers captured it beautifully. I watched this on Criterion maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, I'm not sure. And I don't think it's on anything at the moment, but it's worth kind of seeking out and checking out for yourself. If anything, it's kind of a cool thing to add to the Safdie brothers experience, right? These guys who are going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I think I remember back in the day when we did a bonus on Uncut Gems. I think I remember you telling me about this. I think you brought it up then.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that sounds just like a bummer of a story. A guy who almost had it. Those are the saddest stories. Not people who've tried and failed, but people who like just made. We're almost there. It's a bummer, but I'm sure it's worth checking out.
Yeah, it definitely is, and you don't know what's going to happen when you're making a documentary. You that's one of the beautiful things about it. It's not written. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. With Undefeated, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know that they're going to go 0-1 and then they're going to win 9 games in a row and make the playoffs. You don't know that. So while it's unfolding, it's like this exhilarating experience of, oh my God, I really don't know what's going to happen next, and neither did the filmmakers. And that's crazy to think about, and with Lenny Cook, you can tell the Safdies are like, fuck, like, dude, come on, man, like get your shit together. But they're just there to film, they're just there to make a movie, and it's wild. Yeah. I think you would like it a lot. It's only an hour and a half. It's a real quick one. They get straight to the point, and there's a few shots that in that film that are just bonkers good. So Lenny Cook.
That is such a crazy idea, though, that these guys do set out to make a movie, but there's zero guarantee that they're going to get the movie that they envision. It's a complete shot in the dark. And I can't imagine having that level of confidence and commitment to something that I don't even know is going to pan out. Like, they could just get nothing, or they could get everything. It's entirely up to a flip of the coin. It's wild.
Yeah, I think that's why true crime documentaries are the most fascinating to the general public. They're the most watched documentaries are those true crime ones. And when you do something like Making a Murderer, right? It's like, oh my God, these things keep happening to this guy. He keeps getting fucked over and over. But we don't necessarily know that. The filmmakers didn't know that. They were like, oh, here's this thing that kind of sucks. and then more things happen that suck. And you just kind of stacks of stuff on top of each other, and then you have this amazing product that people can't take their eyes off of, and you forget you're watching real life stuff. You're watching real people struggle. It's a wild thing to really wrap your head around, because you're so used to movies and TV shows that are scripted and they're built to do this to you. They're built to play with your emotions. Documentaries are a whole different beast.
Yeah, and I'm only just now starting to understand that beast. My number 4 is a doc I watched the first time last week, and it was so captivating I wanted it on my list. It's a Shudder original, Boris Karloff, the man behind the monster.
Nice.
It's the story of Boris Karloff, one of the most recognizable names in film history, the original Frankenstein's monster, and a true titan of the industry in ways I did not know. I didn't realize how instrumental he was to helping form the Screen Actors Guild in the 30s with Bela Lugosi. They were instrumental in the beginnings of that. Karloff came from an interesting place. He was doing kind of bit parts on various low budget crime thrillers, playing like the heavy. And then some dude who was making Frankenstein, one of the producers saw him in the commissary and was like, that guy's got a weird looking face. And they hired him as Frankenstein's monster. And he wasn't even credited on the movie. He wasn't invited to the premiere. He was just some guy. And then from there, he kept getting work based off of Frankenstein and turned it into a very lucrative, long career that lasted 30 years. And I'd never heard about his post-Frankenstein life. I always just assumed it was Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and then he disappeared. But no, it was a very long career where he worked with Vincent Price and Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. and all sorts of people. And he kind of changed what it meant to be a horror performer in Hollywood. Like back in the 30s and 40s, horror was super lowbrow. It was cheap to make. They cared about the money it made, but no one was trying to put any prestige on it. But Karloff's performances carried that prestige. People recognized his performances as something to pay attention to, something to last. And here we are. It's a very cool documentary. It was made a few years ago. It's got interviews from Dick Miller, Christopher Plummer, like right before they died.
Jeez.
I know, I was blown away. And it's really cool to hear how powerful his legacy is even today. His daughter holds conventions for him, and like fans like send her stuff all the time. She's grateful, like just because of her father. So definitely one worth checking out if you want to see a little bit of classic Hollywood, and how horror has always been there.
How horror has always been there. I love that. That's a quote. Great call. I have not seen that, so I'm very interested. Shudder always has really cool documentaries that they're trying to push. That's a good shout, man. Yeah, I'll definitely keep my eye out for that one. That's a good pick. And you said you just watched that a week ago.
Yeah, Caleb watched it, said it was really good, and I was like, I had some time, so I'm like, I know we were doing a documentary thing, so I'm like, fuck it, let's check this out. And it was fantastic.
That's cool. And you ended up adding it on your list. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You didn't just like it, you loved it. That's awesome, man. My number 4 is a 2010 HBO documentary. HBO sport film is what they call it. It's called Magic and Bird, A Courtship of Rivals. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, two of the greatest athletes to ever kind of walk the earth. And they had this, built-in rivalry since they were in college. They played each other in the let me see if I can get all my years right here. 1979, they play each other in the NCAA championship game, Michigan State versus Indiana State. Magic Johnson's at Michigan State, very, very much a team full of mostly black players, and then Larry Bird at Indiana State, mostly a team of white players. And it was this, they didn't plan it. It was just the narrative that people wanted to build in the late 70s and going into the 80s of, we have this black superstar and this white superstar. They're both about the same height. They both are incredible creators for their teams, and they both are clearly the best player on their teams. And so this rivalry was built in for them before they even got to the NBA. Then they get to the NBA. They're drafted the same year, and they have this run in the 80s where we've never really seen anything like it since, and probably never will, where two guys just go toe to toe the whole time. In 1980, Magic Johnson's Los Angeles Lakers won the championship. In 1981, Larry Bird's Boston Celtics won the championship. Then we go back 1982 to the Lakers. And there's a little break in 1983 where the Philadelphia 76ers swooped in and won a championship. And then from there on, it's these two teams going head to head. The Boston Celtics win in 1984, the Lakers 1985, Celtics 1986, Lakers 87 and 88. And then, so it's just those two teams led by these two guys going at each other constantly, playing in the NBA finals against each other, in commercials together for Converse. Just the two faces of the league. Before Michael Jordan got there and became Michael Jordan, it was these two guys. And in this documentary, Brian Gumbel, one of my favorite quotes from any documentary is, he says, people want to say that Michael Jordan saved basketball. That's bullshit. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird saved basketball. I love that so much because I think people forget about everything pre-Michael Jordan. I think people are just enamored by the celebrity, enamored by the narrative that MJ is the greatest. There's no question about it. These two guys were fucking incredible players. And Jordan had to go through them to become who he was, and this documentary is so cool. It's a swift hour and a half. And just like Lenny Cook, this one made me cry. There's one specific scene later on in the documentary. Of course, if you know much about Magic Johnson, you know that he was diagnosed with AIDS in the early 90s and, could not play anymore. There's a whole other documentary called The Announcement about Magic Johnson that ESPN did. And it's about him announcing that he had AIDS. That's a great documentary as well. Not on my list, but a really good documentary as well. But this Magic and Bird one is really cool because the day that Magic announced that he, had AIDS and he's going to step away from basketball, because at this time, it's a completely different beast than it is now, right? Players were scared to go against him type thing. They were like, I don't want to get AIDS, I don't want to get AIDS from playing against him. They didn't realize that you had to get blood on blood. It had to be the specific thing. So he couldn't play anymore. And there's a game, the Boston Celtics are playing against the Atlanta Hawks. And Larry Bird comes out of the tunnel to play this game. And he looks like he does not want any part of it. Because that's his muse. They both fed off each other. They're like, we're both so good. And we push each other so much that I need this guy. I need this guy here. Otherwise, what am I doing? I'm not going against anything if it's not against him. And so he comes out, he doesn't look right. He was starting to have some lower back problems where it was making him like move a little slower. But Larry Bird does something really cool in that game that I think is one of my favorite sports moments ever. Magic Johnson, if you know about him, he was a very flashy player, liked to throw the ball all kinds of ways. He would do these no-look passes that were really famous, or he'd throw it behind his back to other teammates. And Larry Bird was flashy, but not as much as Magic. Nobody has ever been as wild as Magic on the court. His name's Irvin Johnson, but people called him Magic because that's the kind of shit he did. It was like Magic on the court. Larry Bird, in the middle of the game, he's at half court. It's not necessary at all, but it was a shout out to Magic, and he knew it was a shout out to Magic. At half court, he throws this wild behind the back pass to one of his teammates, and his teammate makes a layup. And he just like pointed up like, that was for my buddy. That was for my boy. That was for Magic. And when I first watched this, I was 15 because I watched it live on HBO because I was fucking amped for it. I just started bawling. I was like, oh my God, I love Larry Bird. Like, this guy's so awesome, and the documentary covers all that stuff. It covers how they both kind of ended and how the NBA was never the same without them. And it covers their friendship too, because when you're going at each other that often, there's going to be this respect involved. And when they filmed a commercial for Converse, they did it at Larry Bird's house. Larry Bird lived on this like really interesting piece of land in Indiana during the off seasons. with his mom, and his routine was he would wake up, do like a little workout. He would mow the lawn. This is Larry Bird, a guy who doesn't need to be mowing the lawn. He would mow the lawn, and then he would go outside on this outdoor court, and he would shoot for hours. And Magic came over to that house to do a commercial for Converse because they both wore those shoes. And Bird was like, well, we're going to do this commercial or whatever, but you're not going to interrupt my routine of what I do. You can film around me. When I have downtime, that's when I'll tell you I'm ready to film for the commercial. And Magic was like, well, let's play one-on-one. So they have this amazing game of one-on-one at Larry Bird's house in Indiana with his mom making them food, making them lunch, and they're playing on this outdoor court in the middle of the country, going head to head. And that's when the friendship and the respect really started of like, oh my God, you're not just an amazing player. You're an amazing person, amazing man. And I love that so much when two giants like need each other to keep going, to keep pushing each other, to keep going, to, keep staying on top of one another, like one up. Ultimately, Magic got more championships. He got 5, and he got 5 most valuable player awards. Larry Bird got 3 championships and 3 most valuable player awards. They're pretty close. And the 80s is theirs. They own 80s basketball. And this documentary just kind of covers all that stuff in a short amount of time. HBO, shout out to them. It was directed by Ezra Edelman, and you'll probably recognize that name because that's the guy who basically ran the documentary OJ Made in America. So Ezra Edelman went on to do some amazing things and is a documentary giant at this point. I would have OJ Made in America on my list if it wasn't fucking 9 parts and 45 hours. But, we wanted to stick to, feature length films, so that one did not make it. But God, Ezra Edelman has contributed some amazing things to the documentary community.
Yeah, I may not know a lot about basketball, but I know Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. I know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's cool that they, to kind of see the evolution of a rivalry that pushed them both to become better players. That's always cool to have somebody that you kind of like, like you need that grudge to stay alive.
Yeah.
And to see that blossom into a friendship is really cool. Like, you couldn't make that shit up if you tried. No,
for sure. And Larry Bird says at one point, he's like, look, like I would be laying in bed at, 1 a.m. and I couldn't sleep because I'd be thinking Magic's probably out there shooting. They're just these fucking freaks, and I think one of the things that you what you were just speaking about, why you would really like this documentary is because you can kind of put that in any art, any art form. There's always someone working harder. Always, whether it's a writer or a filmmaker or a basketball player, football player, whatever it is, a musician, there's always someone out there who's pushing the limits. And if you're not doing the same, you're going to fall behind.
Yeah. I mean, you see that kind of rivalry in filmmaking all the time.
Oh yeah.
It's awesome. Like I like to think, I know it's a friendship, but I'm pretty sure, Lucas and Spielberg were just going at one another, trying to be better. And, I love that. And it's a relationship anybody can kind of understand. We've all had those rivals where we're like, I'm not doing good if he's not doing worse. We always have, there's somebody in our lives where we felt that, maybe not now, but at some point. And that's relatable as hell. And you need that relatability, I think, in some cases to fully immerse yourself, especially if you're like me, who doesn't have a sports background or really like is interested that much by that. But I could get interested in that kind of story, a rivalry turn friendship, yes. A relationship like that. I can relate to that. I can get invested in that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I connect with them too so much. And I've gone on to read books about them. Jackie McMullen wrote a great book. She's an amazing writer, wrote a great book about kind of the 80s and just this golden era. It's called When the Game Was Ours. And it's just this beautiful book about those two guys and kind of those two teams and how good they were. It's just a really cool era to learn about. The game was completely different. At that time, Larry Bird was fucking punching people in the face in the middle of games and would go on to keep playing. If you do that now, you're suspended for like the rest of the season. So it's just a completely different beast during the 80s.
Jesus.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Larry Bird was nasty. He was a nasty motherfucker, and had, he fancied himself a drink every now and again. So he would just drink a ton of beer and, just fucking go outside the next day and work it off and just fucking shoot over and over. So he's a fascinating dude.
I keep thinking to that Space Jam scene where they're playing golf and Bill Murray's like, Larry's not white. Larry's clear.
Yes, he is. He is. He's Larry. You can't call him anything. He's fucking Larry Bird. He was the man.
Right on. My number 3 takes us to one of the most underrated character actors who ever lived, a man who was only in 5 movies, but 5 incredible, culturally relevant Best Picture nominated films. The doc is I Knew It Was You, Rediscovering John Cazale.
Good pick.
For those of you who don't know, John Cazale, most famous for playing Fredo Corleone in the first 2 Godfather films, was also in The Conversation, Dog Day Afternoon, and The Deer Hunter before he died of cancer in his mid-30s.
Yeah.
It's a damn shame. But this doc tells the story of his short-lived career and all the people he interacted with. We get little, Al Pacino talks about him. He was the love of Meryl Streep's life. They were together before he died. She gets very candid about their time together. And it's a very powerful doc that showcases a legend who did so much in such a short amount of time that we're still talking about him today. And it just makes you wonder, what else would he gone on to do had he not, unfortunately, passed from cancer? But yeah, John Cazale, one of the most powerful character actors of the 70s. And this is it's only like an hour 10. It's a very quick doc, but it is a powerful watch. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I've got the DVD, but I urge you to try to find a copy. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah. Talk about a guy who's up for best 70s run out of anybody, and had his hand in so many amazing pieces of cinema. And he's one of those guys that you can kind of judge what someone knows or what someone cares about, filmmaking or especially 70s film, if they know and are connected to him, because he was involved with the best stuff and one of the best Godfather characters in the whole trilogy, the whole franchise, the whole trilogy. He's just one of the best.
Dude, the scene where he's, yelling at Mike, I was the older brother and I was passed over. Like, that is one of the most powerful scenes in the franchise. And that he wasn't up for supporting actor is a crime to this day. He was amazing as Fredo, just this fall from grace, the little, kind of the joke of the family, but still, wanting to be respected and going about it a horrible way. It's maybe the most important arc of the franchise.
I think so. I think it's the one that is it's universal. We all understand that, we might not understand what it's like to be in the mob or be in the mafia or anything like that, but you understand those family dynamics and those dynamics of wanting to be loved, wanting to be cared for. Gosh, some of those scenes that he's in, and his inevitable ending is just one of the saddest fucking things I've ever watched in my life. So yeah, great pick, man. I love that. I had a feeling that was going to show up on this list just because I know you love that guy so much.
Yeah, it's such a great story. He was such a cool guy and just taken from us so goddamn quick, but left his mark. By God, did he leave his mark? Yeah, enough said. Rest in peace, John Cazale.
Hell yeah, man. Another guy we're gonna have to say rest in peace to. My number 3 is the documentary from 2019, Diego Maradona, who passed away not that long ago. Now, this is a documentary directed by one of the masters of the craft of the medium, Asif Kapadia. He directed Senna in 2010. Amy, the amazing Amy Winehouse documentary from 2013. He did some stuff in the 2000s, in particular. The Warrior from 2001 is amazing. But my favorite thing he's done is Diego Maradona from just about 3 years ago now. Jesus Christ, Diego Maradona is he could be looked at as the greatest soccer player to ever live. Some people would say that. Most talented, maybe. Had this crazy, crazy, huge ego. Messed around with drugs a lot, but just out of this world. When he was on, he was ready to go. There's not very many guys you can compare him with. His best stuff was in the 80s. He was playing for the Italian club Napoli. Napoli was this fucking rundown type of club that didn't really know where it was going, and he was like, "Fuck it, I want to go there and raise them up to be giants." And to this day, Napoli is still one of the giants of Italian football. They're still very good, have very good players. This year they're struggling a little bit, but they're still very good side, very good team. And it's kind of because of him that he created this whole club that is now very respected. And when you have a guy like that you can always look to, Diego Maradona, this Argentinian just freak of nature who could do anything on the soccer field. It's really cool to watch. It's really cool to watch people's adoration towards him. He was like a god. He was like a god to these Italian people. That it was like, we finally have our Jesus. We finally have our person to rally behind, and he's going to save us. He's going to save our club. We're going to be the greatest ever. He has some of the most fascinating international football moments. Specifically, there's one, the Hand of God, where it's called the Hand of God, where he was going in for a header and he jumped up and the ball clearly hit his hand and the ball went in for a goal and the ref didn't see it, didn't call it, and he just started celebrating, and this is back when there wasn't instant replay. There wasn't something that you could just go back to and be like, oh no, that's not a goal. It was a handball. It happens. And so now it's this legendary moment, this legendary World Cup moment where, you just got to fucking roll with it. Maradona rolled with it. But for that to be the thing, I think a lot of people will kind of, remember him for his angst and remember him for those kinds of things. This documentary definitely is very fair in the fact that it points out the flaws that he had as a player, the flaws that he had as a person mostly. But man, it highlights some of his moments where he is just shredding players, moving up the field like it's nothing. And it's so fun to watch. This was a very highly anticipated documentary for soccer fans because they compiled over 500 hours of unseen footage of him behind closed doors, of him with his family and this and that. And it's a wild ride. It's a long one. It's a little over 2 hours. And I've seen it multiple times now because it's just freakishly good. I highly recommend it. I think I love the stuff I have on this list, but I think Diego Maradona is the one that will speak to kind of everybody, no matter what you're a fan of, if you even care about soccer at all. You learn a shit ton in that 2 hours, and it packs a punch, man. There's stuff about his son that happens later on in the documentary, and that's just tugs at the heartstrings, and really makes you kind of contemplate what you think about him and what you think about the player and the person. And that's like one of the best things a documentary can do. Some of the footage is crazy. I love sports footage from, because you're used to seeing it one way and you're used to seeing it kind of like, wow, look at this compared to HD, right? Compared to what we have now, especially with sports. But some of the footage that they're able to capture where it's so raw. And while it has a little bit of that grain that we love from the 70s and 80s, it's so fucking real and so vibrant. And that's, again, one of the best things a doc can do is kind of bring those things to light and put them together in a coherent 2 hour story. So yeah, Diego Maradona, excellent stuff. Still on HBO, should be on HBO Max because it's one of their things. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, soccer is my family does. We do watch the World Cup. That's about the only big sports thing we get involved in because we've got a lot of different culture in our family. We root for Peru. We root for Colombia. We root for Germany. It's our family's a hodgepodge, and you get into it. It's cool to see countries take on one another in a game that makes sense to me. And yeah, I like spotlighting players like that hand of God thing. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
God, that's got to be a point of contention, I imagine.
Oh yeah, some people do not like him. Do not like how he carried himself on the field, and specifically stuff like that. And it's against England, and England created the sport. They created football. A lot of people say that England created football and South America adopted it and perfected it, because Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, those countries have always been, Uruguay, they've always been masters at playing the game and playing it fast and being really, really snippy, being really aggressive and in your face. And so Argentina going against England in the 80s is like this just ultimate fucking showdown of the old versus the new. And the fact that he did that against England, if you just Google the pictures of it, it is such a crazy picture of him with his hand up, and the goalkeeper's right fucking there. He's like, I'm about to get it. And he fucking just kind of punches it and it goes in, and you're like, oh my God, it's so crazy.
That's bonkers. Wow. What a weird piece of legacy to have. Memorable, but also like super fucking dodgy. That's fascinating.
Yeah. It's cool, man. I definitely just look it up. It's a 1986 World Cup, Argentina versus England. The coolest part of that particular game is that Diego Maradona scored probably his greatest goal ever, and then he has that goal.
Oh shit.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. You would love it. There's like a 4-minute video of both goals on YouTube where you can kind of see the breakdown of, oh my God, this guy shredded England, just shredded them. And they looked like idiots. They looked like clowns because he's boom, 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 bouncing off all of them, dribbling around them, and bang. And then he has this other goal that just is a bad taste in people's mouth.
Yep. Speaking of bad tastes, my number 2 is another recent watch that if you follow the Beyond the Bad podcast, another show we do here, you'll know that we recently, in the past couple of weeks, covered the 1996 disaster, The Island of Dr. Moreau. Well, there is a documentary that details that entire troubled production that has a story that is a million times more fascinating than what the film ended up becoming. This doc is called Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. And it's streaming on Shudder and Tubi right now. And it is an absolutely insane story of, it plays with the idea that, sometimes our dreams don't work out. Sometimes you make it into Hollywood and you're just like obliterated by the greed and the work ethic of everybody. And just this idea that you don't matter as much as the project does. Richard Stanley had been developing the Island of Dr. Moreau for 4 years before he got the green light by New Line to make a film. Within 4 days of production, it was taken away from him. He couldn't handle a cast that included a bloated, disinterested Marlon Brando and a super sadistic, angry Val Kilmer, who were just butting heads the whole time to see who was going to be top dog of this shit show. And Richard Stanley was a pretty novice filmmaker who had a nervous breakdown trying to make this happen. New Line pulled him off the project, put on John Frankenheimer, who's basically this drill sergeant asshole. And the whole production just turned into a nightmare. The budget went through the roof. Production went another 6-7 months longer than it was supposed to. Richard Stanley never got on the plane back to LA, disappeared in Australia until he was found again near the set, just living in a tent. It's the craziest fucking story. And it is so brilliant and fascinating to see just everything that could have gone wrong went horrifically wrong with this production. And by the end of it, everyone was just happy to be alive. They're just happy they got out of this serious emotional trauma. And some people didn't. Some people never really recovered from this. Richard Stanley, for instance, never made anything of note like again until like 2019 with Color Out of Space, which was his big comeback. And then he got accused of sexual assault and now he's gone. So just, it's a wild story. You don't have to watch The Island of Dr. Moreau to appreciate this. In fact, I recommend you don't. But this doc is fascinating and really weird and cool. And I like to see some stories that kind of end on a negative note of like, you know what? Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes there is no fairy tale ending. Sometimes shit just goes wrong.
Jesus, especially with filmmaking, right? You have all these egos at once. Gosh, I need to see this. I remember, obviously very recently listening to that episode and just kind of hear you guys kind of shit talk. It was really funny, but I also was very intrigued by, like you said, not only the movie and what it is, and the cast and whatnot, but this specifically this documentary. So I will do my best to check this out as soon as I can.
Yeah, this doc became crucial to that episode. Most of that episode ended up being us kind of going through the documentary and talking about some of the highlights.
Yeah.
And there's one exchange I want to bring up here because it's just so goddamn funny. It was Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando's first and only conversation together, where Val, being this young upstart, thinking he's hot shit, wants to impress who, many consider to be the greatest actor of all time, just sitting over there in a muumuu. And Val tells Marlon Brando, like, hey, have you explored the area? It's a beautiful country. Have you been to the reef? And Brando just looks at him and goes, the reef? I've got a reef. I've got reefs coming out of my ass. And Val didn't pursue the conversation further. That's all they said to each other, the whole production.
Okay, you goddamn weirdo. Yeah.
I love that. Like from the get-go, Marlon Brando was like, oh, I don't like that guy. Because Brando, while difficult, was still cordial with everybody, and he treated the crew pretty reasonably. Kilmer was just trying to, be top dog, and he was attacking everybody. He burned a dude with a cigarette. Like, he's a fucking lunatic.
Yeah, and you wonder why he fell, right?
Yeah.
Jesus, there you go. What's that on?
It's on Tubi, but if you want it without ads, it is on Shudder.
Okay, yeah, figured Shudder had it. Yeah, all right, there you go. I got Shudder. I can make that happen. I very, very, very keen on watching that just because I love this kind of also resurgence now of people wanting to see the making of whatever film, like there's gonna be that show, the Offer, there's gonna be that about the Godfather. Like, I like that people are hungry for that stuff.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from the Me Too movement, and stories that weren't allowed to be said are now being, people are allowed to complain about these psycho situations they were involved in that is not normal to regular people, but in Hollywood it's Tuesday. So now, we're not accepting this as normal behavior. So now we get to kind of see the nitty gritty details of how some of our movies are made. And a lot of times it's not pleasant.
Yeah. Gosh, man. That's incredible. Yeah. I will be seeing that. That's your number 2?
Yeah.
All right. My number 2 is the one that I would recommend to you personally the most. And it is the Two Escobars from 2010. The Two Escobars is a proper 30 for 30 ESPN film. Back in 2009, 2010, 2011, that era, ESPN decided to fund 30 films directed by 30 different filmmakers about 30 different stories in sports.
Wow.
And it's this incredible project where I actually own all of them. Because they came out with this set of the first 15 and the second 15. And I was like, well, I want these. So they're amazing. You can find them on different streaming services. For a while, they're on Netflix. Right now, I think some are on Hulu, maybe. I don't know. But the Two Escobars is, in my opinion, not even close the best one that they did. ESPN Films has done a lot of amazing things, but the 30 for 30 series, and specifically the Two Escobars, is just lights out. And when I watched this on ESPN because they would air them on ESPN, they would like promote them. They're still doing this. They're not doing proper 30 for 30s, but it's kind of a spinoff now. And they still do this. They had a really good one come out about Dennis Rodman maybe 2 years ago that was just incredible. They're still doing them now. There was a really good New York Mets one that came out not that long ago. But again, this one is the one to watch because it involves maybe the most popular drug dealer in the entire world, drug kingpin, Pablo Escobar, and Andres Escobar. Pablo needs no introduction. He is Pablo fucking Escobar. Andres Escobar is a very, very, very talented Colombian soccer player who captained the team in 1994 World Cup. Now that World Cup was here in the United States. Leading up to that World Cup, Colombia was building this incredible team. They had, Carlos Valderrama and Rene Higuita as the goalkeeper and Andres Escobar. They had 4 or 5 guys who really could really fucking play. And they were looked at as one of the best teams in the entire world in the late 80s, early 90s. And Andres maybe being the best player. Pablo took a liking, to these players and to what they had going on, and he had this crazy property that a lot of people have heard about now and has been in that TV show on Netflix. But watching it really on a documentary and actually seeing Pablo Escobar is a totally different beast. And he had this amazing soccer field that looked like it was in the middle of a jungle, and he would bring guys out to play on this field, different Colombian players, Argentinian players, Chilean players, Brazilian, whatever, all these different South American guys he'd bring out to play on this field while him and his drug buddies would fucking bet, would gamble on who's going to win, and that's an absolute dream of mine to hang out with, to hang out with Pablo, not necessarily, fucking bet with the guy. Cause I couldn't bet anything with the guy. The guy's fucking left thumb was worth more than my life. So but to watch these guys that they would gamble on these soccer games that nobody was watching, that wasn't televised, that wasn't anything that anybody saw. He'd have these people come out and do these things. And the documentary covers that. The documentary covers Pablo Escobar getting very interested in the club teams around Colombia and kind of trying to invest in them. And, to the extent where he's owning his own team and he's buying players because he has the most money in Colombia. And he's like, I'm bringing you here. You're coming to play for me and we're going to fucking win, And of course, Andres Escobar being who he was and how good he was like, I have to have this guy. And his rise is fast. Pablo Escobar's rise is one of the fastest, in world history. And to even try to put into words how big he was in 1994 is just silly, right? In the late 80s, early 90s, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, the guy's one of the most well-known people in the entire world. In 1994, Andres Escobar, playing for Colombia in the group stage of the World Cup, playing against the United States in Los Angeles at the Rose Bowl. United States, not a very good team. They've never been this mega powerhouse. They've always been kind of, decent team, decent squad that, can make the World Cup, but probably won't make a whole lot of noise. They beat Colombia in this game, and very shocking for everybody. And the goal that happens for the U.S. was not necessarily scored by an American player, but the ball was crossed in by an American player. Andres Escobar slides, the ball hits him in the leg, and the ball rolls into the goal. Ooh. So Andres is then that's what they call an own goal. It's not really scored by the Americans. It's not really scored by the Colombians. It's like it's an accident. And Andres Escobar, best player on the team, the captain, the lead defender, is the guy whose leg it went off of. If you look at it in certain ways, it looks like he kind of does it on purpose. It's like, what were you doing? Why did you do this? Like, how did this happen? It's as if Andres wanted this to happen, is what it looked like to some people. And definitely to the Colombian fans and to the fucking cartel and Pablo and his people, it was like, what did you just do? They lose the game. They end up not moving further than the group stage in the World Cups. They got ousted because they lost to the United States. You know, you lost to these fucking gringos who don't know how to play the game. And you guys are supposed to be one of the top teams in the world, and you don't even advance to the knockout stages. So Colombian players go back home. And not long after that, Andres Escobar is murdered in Colombia. And of course, when you have all these people, these cartel members, and these very powerful criminals that run the betting world and run the sports world of your country, and that guy does that and ruins your chances at winning a bunch of money, you're going to take matters into your own hands. And Andres, who by all accounts did not want to go play at this Pablo Escobar fucking, resort. He didn't want any part of that part of the game. He loved the game. He loved his family. He loved giving back to the community. He loved going back and hanging out with kids and playing football with them and being a part of the Colombian community. That's what he fed off of. He wanted to be a leader. And that one mistake ended his life. That one silly mistake in a sporting event that ultimately is not going to matter, is why his life ended. And this documentary goes very deep into all kinds of things around those two guys and the connection that they have. They're not related. Both their last name is Escobar. But gosh, their fate is intertwined forever. And just think, when you mention Pablo Escobar, you should have to mention Andres, and you should have to mention the Colombian football team and how much pull that Pablo had on that team and on those players, their lives. It's fucking scary, and this is when you have a lot of people who complain about soccer, like, oh my God, why would you like that sport? People die over it. Here in the United States, not so much, but in other places, in South America, there's areas in Asia. You don't fuck up. You don't let your country down like that, is how they look at it. And you can get fucking annexed for it. So it's just this crazy sport that is bigger than a religion to these people. And that's scary.
That's fucking crazy. That's a brilliant story. I definitely would like to check this one out. Pablo Escobar, what a complex character, because to the rest of the world he's a demon, but in Colombia he's still revered as a hero. He rescued his neighborhood. They still revere him over there. It's fucking weird.
In Medellin, it's like he's the king. He's like, it's crazy.
Pablo, it's that's the idea that he can just pick players from a roster and be like, this is my team now. They're going to come to my stadium and play for my amusement. That's fucking power. My God.
Major power. Yeah. Pablo Escobar, this one of the craziest things about how powerful he was and how the cartel continued past his death, right? Is Pablo dies. So most people say anyway, I know there's those conspiracy theorists out there. He dies in 1993, a year before this World Cup. His power went so deep as the cartel continued to do these things once he was gone, continued to treat soccer like it was this religion that if my team loses, someone's going to pay. That influence is fucking nuts to me. I can't really wrap my head around it, which is why I think the two Escobars is an absolute must-see.
Oh, dude, at the height of his power, Pablo was making more money than most of the global economies. Like, the dude was his own fucking country. It was, we can't fathom the level of influence and power that man had in the world. It's crazy.
Yeah, God, I know. It really is. And it's like, I think people, it's that weird line where people almost romanticize it. And it's like, no, you can't, do that. You can't do that.
There's a Netflix series about the guy, fucking Narcos is like, he's got his own biopic where it's like, a gritty. I haven't seen the show, but I imagine it deals with that a little bit.
Yeah, I've seen season 1 because I was like, oh my god, yeah, I have to, because I love Colombian history and I love the soccer team, so I wanted to watch more of that, and I got that feeling of like, okay, this isn't fucking Breaking Bad. These are not fake characters. This is a real guy. You can't romanticize it like that. Narcos is scary. It's a dangerous show.
Yeah, it is weird that, we do that sometimes. We take real disasters, real monsters, and we kind of flip it almost to try to make them, mythological. When in reality, I think we have an obligation to tell the story right, to be as accurate as possible, because this is history. But that's just my 2 cents.
I totally agree.
Yeah. That's great. Those are, yeah. I'm surprised at how many on your list I actually want to see.
That's the one. That is the top one because it involves things that I think you would connect with. The Colombian stuff would be, is right up your alley, and then involving drugs and soccer is like, okay, yeah, sign me up.
You're not wrong. Cool. My number 1 is one of the most fascinating looks into the human psyche I've ever seen. Method acting is cool on paper. It's dangerous as shit if you misuse it. If you start damaging yourself psychologically and ruin who you are as a human being, is it really worth it? My number 1 pick is Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond.
I fucking knew it. So
this
good.
Is a crazy fucking story. This is the story of the production of Jim Carrey's 1999 film Man on the Moon, where he portrayed the late comedian Andy Kaufman. And what he did to become Andy Kaufman is he erased Jim Carrey. He wiped out his own personality, replaced it with Andy Kaufman, stayed in character for months, I think like almost a year. He picked fights with Andy Kaufman's enemies. He treated the cast and crew as if he was Kaufman. He would show up to random places as Tony Clifton and fuck with people. Like, he became Kaufman on all levels. It was scary. Like the production didn't know what to do. And Carrey documented his transformation. I think maybe to look back and tweak it. But all this footage was compiled into a documentary a couple of years ago, and it's unbelievable. I've never seen somebody replace themselves with somebody else mentally before. And you believe it. There's something so real and transformative in that performance specifically that you just don't even see Jim Carrey. And Carrey was interviewed about it, years later, and he said that he's never fully recovered from this. He's never gotten back to 100% Jim Carrey, which is terrifying, that you can disappear into a character so completely that you forget who you are. That's wild. That's mental illness. But for the sake of the craft, it's amazing what people are willing to put themselves through to capture the essence of a character, real or fictional. And Carrey really proved his commitment to the craft with this movie, almost too much. And then he immediately went and did The Grinch. Like, what the fuck? It's such a great documentary. This is one where I urge you to watch Man on the Moon first, so you can understand who we're looking at. But this is absolutely breathtaking, so brilliant and scary all at once. It's by far the greatest film documentary I've ever seen.
Yeah, gosh, this is a good pick. I remember watching this. I watched the doc with my dad. We were at home, and we both kept commenting and thinking about what he did right after, the Grinch, and what follows next, and how his career didn't stop. He just kind of kept getting bigger, and he kept challenging himself. In 2004, he does Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and he's doing these dangerous roles where obviously he's taken it to the nth degree, Man on the Moon, but he doesn't fall off the face of the earth, or he doesn't lose control. He continues to push the craft, which is the most amazing part to me, is that like he's still around. Jim Carrey is still very much a part of our film culture and film community, and very much a person that people kind of look to. Yeah, this is a great pick. I knew it was going to be here, so I was just waiting for it to be talked about. Uh, talk about a crazy day. If you're going to do a double feature of Man on the Moon and Jim and Andy, buckle up.
That's what I did. That was my first time with both of these.
Yeah, buckle up if you haven't watched those. I think they're must see stuff. I think if you care about the art of acting and kind of becoming something that you're not, this is essential, and it's one of the best looks we have into this kind of a project experiment with someone who was arguably the biggest comedy superstar in the world at the time. The guy had just done so many amazing things in the 90s and goes on to do this, at the end. It's a must see. Good pick. That's a great number one.
There are moments during the doc where, like, the cast of Taxi and like Kaufman's relatives and his friend Bob Zamunda have this moment of like, holy shit, that's Andy. Like, they can see him. It's almost like Jim Carrey was possessed by his fucking ghost. It's crazy. I cannot stress how insanely committed he was. You got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, truly. I don't think there's any way to really how intense it is watching him, especially if you are a Dumb and Dumber and The Mask, and Ace Ventura. If you're a fan of those films and what he did before, it's pretty tough. It's pretty flooring. Good pick. It makes me kind of want to go back and watch both of them again, just because it's been since when the doc came out. I watched it very quickly on Netflix, and I was like, "Holy shit!" This is something else. And I've seen Man on the Moon since then. Seen that a few times, but I haven't watched that doc again. And maybe it's time to go back and check it out. Good pick, man. Well, yeah. This is not any lighter. My number one to finish off. This has been amazing. I didn't expect this to be this fun to kind of go down, talk about these documentaries. But my number one is Hoop Dreams, 1994. Yeah. If you know me, this is pretty obvious. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to save a lot of thoughts because we are going to do this on this show at some point. This is a 3-hour documentary. To me, is the mecca of sports documentaries. There's nothing I've seen that's better. Anything I've seen that is a mini series, docu-series, whatever. Like The Last Dance, which is a massive 10-hour type thing. OJ Made in America, which is another huge, massive project. One of my personal favorites is Basketball Love Story, which is like 20 hours. So you find those things and you're like, oh my god, I'm getting so much information back that it's getting me just so amped up for what I'm passionate for. This is a film that was constructed just like all these other docs, where you have a certain amount of footage and you got to put it together. And one of my favorite things about Hoop Dreams is that it wasn't nominated for Best Documentary, but it was nominated for Best Film Editing. So stupid. Should have won. It's one of the premier fucking documentaries that if you've seen it, you're just kind of like, yep. William and Arthur, those two guys are the fucking shit. It follows these two kids from Chicago as they go from the beginning of high school till the end when they're trying to go to college, trying to go play in the NBA, that type of thing. It follows their journey of how hard it is, just how difficult it is, and how you have to be very, very talented and work very, very hard, but you also have to have a lot of luck on your side to get through and make it to something like the NBA. There's only a couple hundred people who, really, really matter as far as players in the NBA every year. And to become one of those guys is very fucking hard. And this film, there's kind of a running theme in mine of just kind of like of this kind of overlying sadness of just how dark it can be at times to be an athlete and the places you have to go the freakish nature you have to just say, most people, including myself, are just like, nah, I'd rather sit down and just kind of, fucking eat a cheeseburger and watch whatever. These guys are like, no, I have to get up. I have to get up. I have to go work out. I have to go play. I have to get better at my craft because that's what I want to do. That's how I want to get out of my current situation so I can have a better situation. And that's Hoop Dreams through and through. These kids, it is literally their dream to make sure that they get out of the situation they're put in to start, the hand they're dealt, so they can get a better hand and move on. Very much correlates with what's happening in the documentary we're going to be talking about here shortly, Undefeated, where it's just such a slim chance of you really getting out of your situation because you're working really hard. You're trying really hard. You're trying to be good at your sport and also keep your grades up. And you're trying to do this and trying to do that and trying to battle family life, home life, school, and the most important thing, your craft. You want to master it. And that is probably my favorite thing about sports documentaries is when you catch someone at an age, mostly, it's best when it's in high school and you catch them at that time and you see them becoming, these, as cliche as it is, and I didn't believe it when I was in high school, but these years matter a lot to who you're going to become and what's going to happen in your future. How serious are you about what you want to do with your life? From my own experience, I fucked around a lot when I was 16, 17, 18. And it shows now, I'm still like really wrapping my head around who I am and what I'm trying to become and what kind of person I want to be. And when you're an athlete, it's fucking times 100 because it's like, not only do you have to figure yourself out, but you have to be so good at this thing. And people are pushing you to be so good at this thing. That is your life. That's what people expect of you. When you become an amazing football player, if you're not amazing the rest of the time, nobody gives a shit. Nobody fucking cares. If you get hurt, nobody fucking cares. And that's one of the scariest things about trying to be an athlete and make it out of your situation to get to a better one is that most of you are going to fail and you're going to fall short. And Hoop Dreams just captures all of those things in such a beautiful way, in such a dark way that I think it's a must see. I think it's stuff. You bought this for me on Criterion not that long ago, and now I own it. But I love Hoop Dreams. We're going to do it on the show at some point this year. Very, very excited to kind of, really, really talk about it, but I want to kind of save it,
Yeah, I know this is one that keeps coming up randomly in conversation. So I know it's coming. Yeah, it does. It sucks about, being, there's positives and negatives about, being an athlete. And I feel like, outside of documentaries, all we see is the positive. All we see is the glamorous lifestyle, the Doritos sponsorships, all that shit. But
yeah,
a lot of times that's all they've got. If they, tear their ACL or something, that's it. They don't have anything to fall back on. Like we see that in Undefeated, like their academics aren't great. They don't test well. Football is all they've got. And in this case, basketball, it's crazy to think that if you have an injury, your life as you know it is over, that you've got nothing else to do. I mean, that's terrifying. I can't imagine the immense pressure these guys are up on all the time.
Yeah. It's just, one little mistake, one little mess up, and it could be over. This one's directed by Steve James, written by Steve James and Frederick Marks. They're both kind of these geniuses who came together, saw these two players, and they were like, holy shit, we got to follow them. And yeah, I cannot wait to talk about this at length at some point. It is a heavy, heavy one. 3 hours. You are not going to want to close your eyes at any moment during this one. It is just, holy shit, intoxicating. And one of my straight up films from 19, which is saying a lot because that's a kick-ass year.
Yeah, for sure. I was hesitant. I've been hesitant about that one too. I'm fucking not anymore. Bring it on.
Let's go. Bring it on. It's on Criterion. We own it now. That's great. Awesome, man. Well, let's recap our list here real quick, and then we'll start talking about Undefeated.
Sounds good. My number 5, The Last Blockbuster. Number 4, Boris Karloff, The Man Behind the Monster. Number 3, I Knew It Was You, Rediscovering John Cazale. Number 2, Lost Soul, the insane journey behind Richard Stanley's The Island of Dr. Moreau. And number 1, Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond.
Beautiful. I love that touch, The Great Beyond. I think that's a great touch.
Yeah, perfect.
Just kind of, whoa, ambiguous. What's going on? My number 5 is Lenny Cook. Number 4, Magic and Bird, Courtship of Rivals. Number 3, Diego Maradona. Number 2, The Two Escobars. And number 1, Hoop Dreams. Hell yeah, man. Very cool. Now, Undefeated is close to being in my top 5. Undefeated is very, very, very good. I've seen a lot of sports documentaries. Undefeated is not doing anything structured that is, out of this world or anything, but it fucking does exactly what it needs to do. And it hits home hard, and you learn specifically about 3 kids that go to this school. It's OC Brown, who's awesome. It's Montrell Money Brown, and it's Chavis Daniels. Those 3 kids, you really get to look at what kind of person they are and their journey throughout this football season. And of course, Coach Bill Courtney at Manassas, Memphis High School, the Manassas Tigers, and these kids that go to this underprivileged, underfunded, just school that seems like a lot of the people that work there don't give a shit, and you have those outliers like Bill Courtney, a volunteer football coach who's like, no, like, the difference, like making a difference in a kid's life, like starts with their teachers and their parents and the adults in their life who can be an example. And this documentary does exactly what it's supposed to do. It runs its course. You get to see the whole football season. You learn a little bit about the background of Manassas. You understand that, the stakes of them getting to the playoffs and trying to win a game. You understand the stakes of, good God, you understand the stakes of OC trying to get a score of 16 or higher on his SAT, right? Yeah, like this is massive.
Dude, there were so many moments that I related to, and I don't even play or care about football, but there were moments where I was like, I get it. I mean, as a kid, having a teacher take an interest in you and an interest in what you like and nurturing your love of something is paramount to you going somewhere. I had an 8th grade English teacher who really who noticed that I like to write and encouraged me to write and, come up with my own stories and really push me. And now, I write for fun. I've written 3 books. Like, I write for the show. I write for fun. And I don't know if I'd have as much of a passion if I hadn't had somebody tell me back then that, I was good at it. Like, you need that. And I'm so glad these kids had that in this coach who's like the coolest guy in the fucking world, that he would dedicate his time to making sure these kids had a plan, had discipline, character, something to fight for. And just on his own dime, like he was paying for this out of pocket. He was sacrificing time with his own family because he knew these kids needed him. And how do you not just fall in love with that? You got to be a cold, heartless son of a bitch to not relate to this thing.
Yeah, fucking A, man. Bill Courtney, he's got some fucking quotes in this documentary that are like, holy shit, dude. this guy's fucking, he's kind of unhinged, but he's also, he's very dead set on what he wants to do. What he wants to do. He wants to win. He wants to win football games, but he also wants these kids to win off the field. That's fucking kick-ass. Undefeated, like I said at the top of the show, 2011. It's won Best Documentary. So we're gonna look at that category here in a minute. Directed by Daniel Lindsay and TJ Martin. These 2 guys who just saw a story. They saw a story, heard about Bill Courtney, heard about Manassas, and their long streak of just losing every year. 0-10, 1-9, 2-8, just shitty inner city Memphis school that has no chance on the football field. And I loved at the beginning when Bill Courtney's talking about how bigger schools in Tennessee would pay them thousands of dollars to go play them, to get their asses fucking handed to them, and they'd come back, and that's how they paid for jerseys and pads and helmets, and that's how they had a fucking football program.
That's so fucked up. It's like they were rodeo clowns, like just
Yeah,
a joke to the like high school football community. It was like, oh, let's pay these assholes to put on a show for a little bit. We'll throw them a check, and then we'll go play real football. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. God, man, just insanity. It's really crazy, and I love what this documentary does with the landscape of Memphis and what you get to see at the school and just how these kids interact. It's really cool. Now, it was up against some pretty interesting competition. Did you get to watch anything else from the?
I didn't, regrettably. It's been a loaded week for other shows and for school and shit. So no, sorry.
I understand. That's okay. I watched one, Pina by Wim Wenders, who's just a wonderful filmmaker. I've seen Paradise Lost. One of my favorite documentaries of all time is Paradise Lost 1, 2, and 3. Love those. I have not seen If a Tree Falls, and I have not seen Hell and Back Again. So I've seen 3 of these. And I gotta say, I think Undefeated is really good, but Paradise Lost 3, man, Purgatory is, I spoke about the true crime documentary is probably the strongest. It's the most appealing because you're watching real crime like unfold in front of your eyes. And Paradise Lost is the third one is the end. It's the final piece of that, trilogy of documentaries. And good God, it's some of the darkest shit I've ever seen. It's not for everybody. As far, you should not watch it if you have a weak stomach. It is tough stuff. That crime, and specifically in Paradise Lost, the first one, they really go into it, right? Of what actually happened. These kids that were murdered and mutilated, and had their, I'm not gonna even speak about, because I think you really have to have some fucking what do you call them? You got to have those like warnings, before you see something. Paradise Lost is not for everybody, but good God, if you have that kind of a mind that can watch stuff like that and digest it and just watch it, and see the story for itself, I think it's must see stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure. It is weird, like documentaries, especially. You kind of have to pick. I'm sure it's different picking the winner here. You got to take into account the subject matter and the stakes and like the significance to culture. And it's tough to argue like which is like more significant. I don't know if you can make that call. No. That's yeah. I think a lot of categories you can say that about, but most specifically documentary. It's like, with the 3 that I've seen, you got Undefeated, football documentary about kids overcoming, their situation and where they're at in society. Paradise Lost 3 is the culmination of this crazy story of the West Memphis 3, these 3 kids that were convicted of murdering these children and then later on exonerated. And then Pina is a fucking dance documentary about a choreographer that was a complete mastermind named Pina Bausch. And those are completely different. Yeah. they're vastly different. And I think some people would think Pina is boring as hell and does not matter in the long run of things, because it's just people dancing the entire time. It's very, very artsy, very out there, and you're just watching people do her dances because she passed away in 2009. So they make this documentary, and it's kind of an ode to her, right? I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really interesting. I'm not a huge dance fan, but I enjoyed what was happening in Pina. Paradise Lost 3, ultimately dark, like true crime to the fucking bone. And then Undefeated, a sports doc. And Hell and Back Again is about a guy who comes home from Afghanistan and has PTSD. So it's like, what are you going to do? Yeah, I mean, look at 2018. Minding the Gap was a film about 3 inner city kids struggling to find identity through skateboarding. What beats it? Dude climbing a mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. Mind in the Gap is, yeah, good God, I love that movie. I'm so glad that was the first documentary he did, because that just is just perfection. But yeah, Free Solo, good stuff, completely different. This is a crazy category. I love looking at them. I think we're going to be more and more interested in kind of tackling some of these as we go, just because we've gotten two amazing films and two amazing episodes out of it, with Undefeated and Mind of the Gap. So this is really cool stuff. I love this fucking ceremony. This is when the artist fucking wins Best Picture. And beats one of my all-time favorites from the decade, Moneyball, which I think definitely should have won. Just a crazy group of movies that were up for Best Picture. Really interesting group of directors. This is a cool ceremony that you look back. It's 10 years old now. 84th. We've got the 94th Academy Awards coming next month, so it's just an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, it's the artist, love it or hate it, is it's a film about Hollywood, and films about Hollywood always seem to have a leg up. Weird when it's Hollywood picking the movies, but
yeah.
I think it's a decent film. I think it's a good watch. I don't think it should have won Best Picture. Maybe like sound editing, but when Moneyball's sitting right there, I don't know. I don't call shots.
Oh, I love Moneyball. I think Moneyball is for everybody. Yeah.
I showed it to my family, who doesn't care about baseball, doesn't care about statistics, and they were fucking in. Like, they loved it.
Yeah, that's that movie magic, where you take something and you combine it with incredible writing from Sorkin and incredible directing from Bennett Miller and Brad fucking Pitt, and that's that movie magic where you can kind of take anything and make it interesting, and Sorkin is clearly the master of kind of taking a workplace where people are kind of fucking butting heads, or they're figuring stuff out together, and he can make it the most interesting shit in existence. So yeah, love that movie. We did that one long time ago. that was one. That's one I would redo on this show, just because I want to like talk about it again. it's that fucking good.
Well, just have to do a showdown on the artist someday.
Yeah, we will do that one day. I own a lot of these movies. I own The Artist, The Descendants, Midnight in Paris, Moneyball, Tree of Life. Yeah, I like this. I like this group overall. I just think it's weird. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it is a weird one. I own a few of these too. I don't know. It feels like everyone was trying to make some sort of point here instead of just celebrating the work. Like, everyone's trying to change the world here. And sometimes people just, you can just make a movie. You don't have to make a political statement too. Not all the time.
Yeah. The early 2010s. What an interesting time. Yeah. Well, I want to give some awards out to Undefeated. Keep talking about Undefeated. So the drill. We got the Tarantino for best quote. We got the Ennio Morricone for best music moment, which this has some kick-ass songs in it. We have the Philip Seymour Hoffman Award for not best performance, but our favorite person from the doc. The person that we kind of took the most from. And then we have the Roger Deakins for the best scene of the documentary. So take it away with your Tarantino.
Surprisingly, the line I have is not one of Coach Bill's little nuggets of wisdom, as many as I could have gone with. It's a quote from Aaron Hayden, his special guest star, who pops in towards the beginning. And Aaron Hayden's there to basically tell everybody, like, you don't need a perfect home life to be an athlete. I came from a shit situation and here I am. And I like that encouragement. Your life is what you make it. And he points that out with a line. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. And I love that. Anybody can start the race, but it takes a fucking champion to finish that race. It's a great life lesson and really reflects anybody who's trying to do something.
Yeah. And it's vital to have someone who, as I get older, I realize, like, all that shit, people I saw speak and people who, like, have been through stuff and have been through trials and tribulations and come out on top, and, like, they're doing the thing they love. you realize as you get older, like, oh, those people are fucking cool, you know. And he when he comes into that room and he's talking to all these kids, it's good for those kids to have proof of someone who just pushed through, you know, just kept pushing, doing the right thing over and over and over, and you'll be rewarded. I love that. I love how that comes full circle later on too. Very cool.
Yeah, this movie has a weird kind of narrative.
Mine comes from Bill Courtney. It does. Right? Yeah. I think the ending of Undefeated takes it to a whole nother level where the last like 10 minutes, you're like, oh my God, this is actually kind of genius. But my quote comes from Bill Courtney. He has some fucking amazing lines in this movie. But my favorite is one that I've always wanted to say to every fucking football coach in the entire world. And it is, you think football builds character, which it does not. Football reveals character. God, I played football, you know, when I was younger. And I had coaches who were absolute fucking lunatics and treated football as if this is your life. Everything else that happens is fluff. It's like the fact that Bill Courtney realized when he does that bit about the clapping and he's like 1, 2, 3, 4, the games are over. That's it. You know, it's this quick thing that happens and it's over. It's done. You blink and you're on to the next thing. The stuff in between, the shit that happens in between is your life. I feel like Bill Courtney is one of the only football coaches in existence that understands that what happens between these lines is a game. And it's a game you should play with all you have. But when you're done, it's done. It's over. And the rest of what you do, you got to carry yourself the way you want to carry yourself on a football field. You know, you got to carry yourself in life, in real life, with your friends, with your family. That's the stuff that really matters. That's the juice. That's the shit that you gotta be willing to put effort into, you know, not just the thing that's fun inside the lines, playing football, competing. You gotta do it all the time. You gotta try, always try.
Yeah, Bill's not teaching these kids how to play football. Anybody can play football. He's teaching these kids life lessons that they can carry with them. He's teaching them discipline and character and team building and things that matter in life through football. And that's a good teacher. That's a good coach. That's somebody who understands that these kids need support, not just on the field, but off the field. And that's wonderful.
Yeah. Bill Courtney's presence, how present he is during the game. And he's so into it. He's like, we got to fucking do this. We got to do this. We got to do that. And then when it's over, he very quickly goes back to like counselor, like he's a therapist. And he's like, look, you know, this happened. You know, today we failed, but tomorrow's a new day. You know, he's always reminding them that like there's always something to kind of get up for, even if it's just having dinner with your friends. You know, you always be present, always put your best foot forward, always do the right thing. I fucking love that about Bill Courtney. He's great, man.
Yeah, he is
so cool. Love it, man. The Ennio Morricone Award. This is an interesting one because you got some score here, but you also have a pretty cool soundtrack that has some interesting flavors. So what'd you go with?
I did have the opening credits for the longest time because I was like, that's some badass music. I'm into this. But then we met OC, and the introduction to OC is Heartbroken in Disrepair by Dan Auerbach. And I was like, fuck, I'm in. Holy hell, this is awesome. I was not expecting to hear Dan Auerbach in this movie. And I was like, this is fucking great.
Yeah, that's my choice. That's my choice too. Gotta be.
Yeah, right
you know what? You know, if you listen to that, we're Black Keys guys. Back when we did Up in the Air, I chose a Black Keys song for my Ennio for that movie. And here's Dan Auerbach again. That bam, 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 bam. And you're like watching OC just fucking plow through these guys. You're like, fuck yeah. It's so cool. Oh man, one of my favorite things about sports documentaries is those little needle drops where you get amped for watching somebody you've never met in your life. and you're like, let's go, man. You know, like this is OC, this 300-pound beast of a machine that is moving kids out of the way, just pushing them to the side. And yeah, Dan Auerbach is in the background, just fucking jamming. Really cool.
Yeah, it was a great introduction to one of our heroes, and his story might be my favorite just because everything he goes through and what he succeeds in getting is so powerful. But we'll get to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. We'll go right into Philip Seymour Hoffman. Is it OC for you?
It's not, but a little bit later. But for my PSH is definitely Coach Bill. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
He probably, like, if I went to that school, he probably could have convinced me to join the football team.
Oh yeah, 100%. He could have convinced me to run through a fucking brick wall. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Pep talk from this dude is worth a million pep talks. Like, this guy knows exactly which buttons to press to make you feel like you accomplished something and that your life is worth it. And that is amazing. This guy should be a life coach. It's amazing. The moments he has with these kids, like, especially like towards the end when he's like hugging these kids and like telling them like, I'm so proud to have been your coach, and everyone's just crying. Like, how do you not fall apart, man? He cares so much. I mean, what he does for, when Money like gets pissed and leaves the auditorium, he goes and finds Money and tells him like, I'm glad you got out of there before you lost your cool, but I need you to come back. Like, just everybody on that team is important to him. He wants to make sure everybody gets the same level of attention, of kind of life education through him. The guy is a fucking role model. And I really hope that this documentary especially got him all sorts of attention. And yeah, the guy's the best.
Yeah. He's amazing. I chose someone different, but Bill Courtney, one of my favorite things that happens is him talk about his childhood. And when he would go home from the game, specifically that one game where he talks about how he had the game-winning touchdown, right? Jesus, is that your Deacons? I don't want to step on it.
It's not, but it did stay with me because of just, I can relate to that exact situation.
God, when he speaks about the other kids would be walking and their dad would hold their helmet and their pads, right? When the movie, I'm getting fucking goosebumps thinking about it right now. When it comes back around and he's doing that for his kid, oh, Jesus Christ Almighty, that fucking shatters me. What a guy. This dude, he has 4 kids, owns his own wood company, his own hardwood company, and then coaches these kids on the side. And one of my favorite things is about him is that he knew when to give it up. He knew when his job was done, when he had to call it quits. He couldn't give it his all anymore. So he said, you know what? If I can't be here 100%, I'm not going to be here at all. I respect that so much. I respect when people can walk away from something when they know they can't commit the entire way. Bill Courtney is an excellent pick and is the main character of our documentary, right? He's the main person. He's the guy we're really following and we're watching. This is the adult in the room. But I chose Money. I chose Montreal Brown. Boy, oh boy, does this guy have a roller coaster of a season. And there's something that leaves me wondering about him. Specifically that scene that might be kind of, to some people, a throwaway or kind of silly. But when he's talking about his turtle and he's talking about how the turtle he's like, it's like a person, it's like a human being. You have the hard shell on the outside, and then on the inside, you're just skin and bones. You're just kind of soft, you're just kind of like nothing. But you're always when you're out in public and you're out in the world, you always have that shell on, and you're always ready to show how thick your skin is, and show how hard your shell is. And I thought that was so fascinating, especially with Money, because we see him get so frustrated with the situation he's in. He is so smart, so intelligent, and has this uncanny ability to match people that are way bigger than him on the football field. He's able to use his brain and use like the gifts that he has to kind of be a really effective player. I love that about Money. I love that so much. His ending when we see Bill Courtney go up to him is like, is kind of why you watch stuff, is why, specifically documentaries, why you watch stuff, for that glimmer of hope. And he's able to go to Southern Miss afterwards, and have a life. I would love to kind of read more about Money, Montrell Brown, and see where he's at now, because this is over 10 years ago. I would love to see what's he doing nowadays. Is he doing all right? Like, this guy has that impact on me. Really, really, really like him. I liked his insight on everything. When he was able to talk, I was like, holy shit, this guy means a lot. So yeah, you could go with Money, you could go with OC, you could go with Chavis, you could go with Bill Courtney. I think those four, you got it. That's a good pick.
That scene where Chavis is getting the Uncommon Man award, and he makes it a point to show that Money, like, he matters too, that his struggle was worth it. After their fight throughout the whole movie, for Chavis to have that kind of emotional growth was very satisfying, very cool. And that Money ended up getting to, manage a football team of his own is fucking beautiful.
Yeah. That's my Deacons, is when Chavis steps up. When Chavis steps up, and he comes out of a youth penitentiary center for 15 months, comes back, goes to school, can't get his shit together, gets into a fight, fights with Money, calls him slurs, calls him gay, and then comes back around in one fucking football season that lasts like 10 weeks. He comes back around and he's able to say, I was wrong, my bad. When I got suspended from the team, I didn't know if I was going to come back, but I came back, became an effective player, got my shit together, gets the Uncommon Man award because he dominated in that one game, and then calls out Money. This guy that, like you said, it seems like they hate each other. And Money looks up like, what the fuck is happening right now? Is Chavis Daniels really like shouting me out right now? I love that moment. And seeing Bill's face when that happens, his shock. And he's like, wait, what? Like, I actually got through to this guy? It is such a rewarding moment watching Chavis speak in front of the whole team, which has to be hard in itself. And admit he's wrong. Admit that Money's the man, that everybody should be looking up to Money because he's been dealt a shit hand, being hurt, being out of the games, amazing stuff. Yeah. It was between that and another scene. I'll see what yours is.
That's great. That was a powerful scene. I do like earlier when you find out that Chavis was in juvie, and Bill tells them, like, you can ask him if he wants to talk about it, but he doesn't want to divulge the details because it's not his place to tell that story. I appreciated the hell out of that. Like, he values their privacy too. Just a cool throwaway.
Very, very cool.
My scene was, for a while, the scene where Money finds out that he got a full ride due to a generous benefactor. I love that. Him just collapsing into like gratitude was so real. But it got eclipsed later on when Bill hugs OC and he collapses. When he falls apart and just says, like, I'm going to say something, but give me a minute here. Like, Jesus Christ, man. You feel it. And then OC starts crying and you just feel this powerful moment of just, student and teacher, of just how much they both mean to one another and how much they've influenced each other's lives. And you just believe every second of it because it is real. You can't fabricate emotion like that. You can't. It only exists in the real world. And these are the moments we find through these documentaries. And I was floored.
That's the one I was talking about. When Bill's like, I love you, buddy, and kind of hits him on the head, and OC's like, I love you too, coach. Like, oh man. And these are two big boys, hugging it out and just kind of crying and collapsing. And it's such a beautiful moment after they lose that playoff game against Westview. Fuck Westview. I wanted Manassas to win so bad. But that's one of my favorite things about this documentary, is that not everything is like a Cinderella ending. Not everything is that way. someone has to lose, and they lose. They lose the game, and you can see that how much it means to all of them, and you can see that this is the end of the ride between Bill Courtney and a lot of these kids, and how much he means to their life, and just how important it is that someone authoritative steps up. Very cool. So good. I'm so glad you liked this doc.
Me too, man. Me too. I don't rank docs on the website. It's just hard to review a documentary. But if I was to give this a 1 out of 10, it is a 9.
Yeah, I think after talking about it, I had it as a 4-star on Letterboxd, so I guess that's an 8 by math. But this feels like a 9. It feels like it's close to a 10 type thing. Just does exactly what it's supposed to do as a documentary. Just teaches you some stuff, gets you close to these people, these real life people that are dealing with very serious things, and you're left with this story that you want to tell everybody, and I hope everybody goes out and watches Undefeated. It's on Netflix. It's been on Netflix for a long time. It's very easy to get access to. So I'm glad this is the second one we did. And Super Bowl Sunday. It's football day, so Undefeated. It felt right.
Yep, not going to argue with that. I might actually watch the game now.
Yeah, you're like, where's OC? Yeah. That's funny. If you were to, just for shits and giggles, if you were to choose between just as a fun little project between the Rams and the Bengals, who would you say is going to win?
I'm all right. I'm pulling for the Bengals entirely because of that Tom Segura bit with Pac-Man.
Yes, there you go. I knew you were going to have something. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. I've been torn. I really like both teams. The Bengals are kind of this young up and coming team. Their quarterback, this is just his second year of being in the NFL. Their best offensive player, Jamar Chase, is a rookie. But then the Rams, one of my best friends in the world, Andrew Bachman, is the biggest Rams fan I've ever met in my life. And I would love to see them win for my buddy Andrew, just because I know he'd be happy for the rest of the year if they win the Super Bowl. But either way, I'll be all right. I'm not, neither of these teams do I dislike. They both have really cool qualities about them. And I'm excited. So if you're listening to this, chances are the game's either going on or has happened already, but we're recording this on Friday night. So these are fresh predictions. You're going Bengals. I'll go Rams. Fuck it.
All right.
That's awesome. All right. What do we have this week on the other shows?
Wow. Monday's sneak preview. We'll be covering Kenneth Branagh's Death on the Nile, the latest Hercule Poirot adventure. Hope it's good. I'm seeing it tomorrow. Wednesday is the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Filmgazm. Very excited. The new Texas Chainsaw comes out on Netflix on Friday, so we're doing full Texas Chainsaw on all of our shows. Beyond the Bad is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation from '95, the one that Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger have been trying to distance themselves from for almost 30 years with no success. So ought to be a blast.
That's awesome. That'll get broken up on next Sunday by Best Picture Showdown. It's going to be our 90th episode on this show, which is crazy. We're approaching 100 very rapidly. This showdown is going to be really special because it's around 2013's 12 Years a Slave, which is just a incredibly epic, daunting, fucking scary, very real Best Picture winner, directed by Steve McQueen, starring a bunch of amazing performers. So I'm excited to be back here next week, talk about 2013. We're going to, of course, do our Best Picture stuff, rank those movies, kind of talk about the whole category, and give out awards to 12 Years a Slave. So I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen that movie in a while, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. I saw it once in like 2015 and thought this was great, but holy shit, was this dark. So I think it's been a good enough time for me to revisit this film with everything I've learned since.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it's all about. So we got a jam-packed week here. Gonna be a lot of fun. Thank you for listening with us today. Hope you get inspired to go watch more documentaries because they're important. Do you have one on your radar now? I assume the two Escobars is the one that you're you're ready to watch.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. I want to look into that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I wish we could do it on this show so bad, but it wasn't, didn't win anything, wasn't nominated. So that happens. It's going to happen with the docs. They only have that one category where they can make noise, unless you're Hoop Dreams and you get nominated for fucking best film editing. I don't know how that works, but anyway, thank you for being with us, guys. We'll see you next week.